So today we're diving into something pretty huge, Malaysia's grand plan to engineer its workforce for the future. It's called the Industrial Skills Framework, or IndSF. And really, it's one of the most detailed national roadmaps you'll ever see, trying to get every worker, every school, and every company on the exact same page. But the big question is it the right plan for the reality on the ground?
And you gotta hand it to them. Malaysia is not messing around when it comes to ambition. I mean, look at this statement. It's bold, it's confident, it sets this incredibly high bar for where the nation wants to be. They're aiming to be a high-tech, high-skilled economic powerhouse.
But, okay, here's the reality check. For all that ambition, the country's machinery and equipment sector has a labor productivity rate that's 1.8 times lower than its electronic sector. And that one number, well, it tells you everything you need to know about the gap between the vision and what's actually happening.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look closer at that gap between ambition and reality. Then, we'll get into the IndSF itself, the big solution. We'll see just how massive its scope is, and then, this is the important part, we're going to ask some pretty tough questions about the real-world challenges that might just get in its way. So let's start with the problem the Industrial Skills Framework is even trying to solve. What's the big national challenge here? It's really all about bridging this giant chasm between where Malaysia wants to be and where its workforce actually is right now. And it's not just one thing. When you dig into the documents, you see it's a whole bunch of hurdles. We're talking major skills gaps in key industries, productivity that just isn't keeping up, companies that can't find the people they need, and on top of all that, you have the unique mess left over from the pandemic. And that brings us to the proposed solution. Enter the Industry Skills Framework. This thing is being presented as the nation's meticulously planned, data-driven answer to every single one of those problems we just mentioned. So what is it, officially? Well, think of it as a massive, top-down strategy. The goal is to create one single source of truth for skills for the entire country. It's supposed to tell a student what to study, an employee how to get promoted, and a company exactly who to hire. It's basically a national blueprint for people. And this is where you start to see just how incredibly detailed this thing is. I mean, this isn't some vague set of guidelines. For one single entry-level job, like an aerospace junior operator, the IndSF breaks down everything. The precise skills, the specific things you need to be good at, and it even recommends the exact training courses you should take. Now, try to imagine that level of detail, but for thousands and thousands of jobs. That's when you get a sense of the scale here. And when we say scale, we really mean it. The scope of this project is, well, it's kind of unprecedented. This isn't just for a few high-tech sectors. The plan is to cover just about every single corner of the Malaysian economy.
I mean, its coverage is huge. It maps out all the skills needed for new, emerging fields like drone technology.
It covers the digital backbone of the economy with things like cloud technology. It gets into the nitty-gritty of traditional manufacturing like apparel and footwear.
It even covers the huge service industries like hospitality and tourism.
And of course, it includes all the rules that are shaping the modern economy, like data science and digital marketing. The ambition is just massive. One unified standard for basically everything.
Okay, so we have this incredibly perfect, structured, detailed blueprint. But here's the question. Can a map, no matter how perfect it is, actually fix the deeper problems that industries are facing on the ground? And this is where things get really interesting, because the critique starts to come from inside the IndSF's own research.
And boom, here it is. The disconnect becomes crystal clear with this quote. This comes directly from the framework's own report on the plastics industry. It points to a problem that has absolutely nothing to do with the skills gap. It's about people being unhappy with their pay and their workplace. That's a human problem, not a spreadsheet problem that a skills map can solve.
Right, and it's not just a one-off comment. The framework's own documents are full of these kinds of systemic issues that a skills map can't touch. For instance, the plastics report says vocational training doesn't give people enough hands-on experience and that the whole industry is seen as a dead end. Then you have the sewage report, which flat out says the industry is closed-minded to new tech. These are deep-seated issues of culture, perception, and just plain old resistance to change.
And that really brings us to the final big question here. The IndSF has created what looks like a perfect, detailed map to get to a great destination. But what good is a perfect map if the roads themselves are broken?
And this is the core tension right here. On one side, you have the IndSF's beautiful structured plan. Everything's neat, career paths, standardized jobs, the whole shebang. But on the other side, you've got the messy, complicated reality that its own research uncovered. People are unhappy with their salaries, the training is outdated, whole industries have a bad reputation, and there's a real cultural resistance to doing things differently. It feels like the framework is great at identifying the symptoms, but it completely sidesteps the disease.
And that's what we're left with. A detailed framework can tell you what skills are needed, but it can't force a job to pay a decent wage. It can recommend a training course, but it can't change an entire industry's culture. So when a country designs a perfect map for the future, you have to ask a much bigger question: who's actually responsible for fixing the roads?